Prince Andrew and Fergie deeply disappointed by Beatrice and Eugenie's portrayal in new series. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson are deeply disappointed by the portrayal of their family in a new series about the Duke of York's career-ending interview. The Amazon series, which dropped yesterday, stars Michael Sheen as Prince Andrew and will focus on his infamous 2019 interview surrounding his relationship with Giuffre Epstein. Hello viewers, please remember to subscribe and click on the notifications bell icon, so you will be notified whenever we upload new cookies about the British royal family. A very royal scandal will serialise the 64-year-old's infamous Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, who will be played by Ruth Wilson, over allegations regarding his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and Virginia Giuffre. Maitlis is also producing the series. The three-part series follows both Andrew and Maitlis in the lead-up to the interview, the sit-down itself, and the fallout which changed both of their lives. Prince Andrew was reportedly so excited to watch the series, that he hosted a viewing party last night in Royal Lodge. However, it appears following its release, that excitement has turned to dismay, with the family raising eyebrows at some of its portrayals. A source told the Daily Express, Andrew and Sarah are deeply disappointed by the entire family's portrayal in the series. Recollections may vary is an understatement to describe what has been portrayed from behind the scenes of the interview, the source said, referring to a phrase the late Queen said following claims made by the Sussexes about the royal family in their Oprah interview. The source continued, there are some instances where there hasn't been a fair representation of what actually happened, while other scenarios don't ring any bells at all. In the series, Fergie has been portrayed as a thin-skinned lush by author Alexander Larman, writing in The Spectator. He said that Andrew is portrayed as actively bad, in comparison to Rufus Sewell in Scoop, who characterized the Duke as a privileged imbecile who was easily led astray by those around him. Meanwhile, Beatrice and Eugenie are torn between their love for their father and their horror at the compromising situation that he has embroiled them all in. In the now infamous November 2019 interview with the former BBC presenter, Andrew vigorously denied the allegations that he sexually assaulted Giuffre. Giuffre brought a civil case against Andrew for sexual assault, and the 64-year-old later reached an out-of-court settlement with Giuffre. The settlement was not an admission of guilt and Andrew accepted no liability. The new series is part of an anthology of limited seasons which include 2018's A Very English Scandal starring Hugh Grant and 2021's A Very British Scandal, about the infamous divorce of the Duke and Duchess of Argyll, played by Paul Bettany and Claire Foy. Prince Andrew in no position to bequeath Royal Lodge to Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Prince Andrew is in no position to bequeath Royal Lodge to Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, a royal commentator has exclusively told GB News. The Duke of York, 64, has a lease with the Crown Estate to stay in the house until 2078. However, Andrew is thought to be under increased pressure to pay his own costs for the upkeep and security of the Royal Lodge mansion in Windsor if he is to remain living there. The pressure to move Prince Andrew, who lives in the house with his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, has been called the Siege of Royal Lodge. The father of two wanted to keep Royal Lodge as an inheritance home for his daughters, Princess Beatrice, 36, and Princess Eugenie, 34, GB News understands. But the former working royal, who stepped down from public duties in 2019, is under increased pressure from his brother King Charles to move into a smaller home with less expensive upkeep. Beatrice and Eugenie are thought to already have an inheritance home through their mother, the Duchess of York, who purchased a £4 million home in Mayfair in 2022. Gareth Russell, a royal commentator, spoke exclusively to GB News to explain why it's becoming increasingly unlikely for Royal Lodge to remain a future inheritance home for the Princesses of York. He said, in theory, had everything gone the way Prince Andrew had hoped, there would have been possibly 2 inheritance homes for his daughters. But it's incredibly unlikely that that will be the fate for Royal Lodge. Maybe Mayfair is the alternative inheritance home, given that Royal Lodge might not be Andrew's for the remainder of his life, much less something he's in any position to bequeath to his daughters. Andrew is thought to be reluctant to move out of Royal Lodge to the smaller property Frogmore Cottage, once used by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. If the Duke moved out, it has been suggested that the historic Royal Lodge could be used as a commercial asset by the Crown Estate. Prince Andrew's lease on the property began in August 2003, the year following the death of its previous occupant, the Queen Mother. The Duke had approached the Crown Estate about acquiring the lease. Renting it to Prince Andrew as a paying tenant was seen by Queen Elizabeth II as financially preferable to using it as a grace and favour residence for the royal family. The drama surrounding Royal Lodge comes as a new Amazon Prime series is set to be released next week about Andrew's 2019 Newsnight interview. This is set to reignite questions about the Duke's links to sex offender Giuffre Epstein. That said, Sarah Ferguson's Mayfair home does not solve the Prince Andrew problem. Sarah Ferguson's Mayfair home does not solve the Prince Andrew problem, according to a royal commentator who spoke exclusively to GB News. The Duchess of York's empty £4 million central London home has sparked questions about whether the Duke and Duchess could move from Royal Lodge amid a row with King Charles. As Andrew continues to grapple with the King over keeping his royal residence in Windsor, Fergie has been hauled into the row after neighbours claimed the house remains empty. The two-bedroom Georgian house is located in Belgravia, a short distance from the homes of their two daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. Gareth Russell, a royal commentator, spoke exclusively to GB News about whether Andrew and Sarah could realistically move into the Mayfair property amid the siege of Royal Lodge. He said, "Certainly, the Duchess of York could live safely and comfortably at the home, and her daughters and grandchildren could visit her there and stay there very regularly. However, the security for Prince Andrew will always be a factor. Moving someone like Prince Andrew, who is a brother of the monarch and also a very controversial public figure, into a private residence in the centre of one of the busiest cities in the world, is not something that can feasibly be undertaken unless there is a security presence there. Plus, that doesn't really solve the problem of how to keep Andrew safe without making him a burden to the taxpayer. There doesn't seem to me to be any way in which Prince Andrew can relocate into Mayfair or any part of London without substantial security that either he pays for himself, which he won't be able to afford for very long, or is paid for by the taxpayer." Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like this video and drop comments, and most importantly don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything.